Hi everyone, welcome virtually. I'm here with Carolyn Castaño.
Hello everyone, how are you?
And we're going to do a little walkthrough of her wonderful exhibition. So thank you so much, Carolyn, for all of your incredible work and patience and perseverance with us. And I'm so excited for all of you to get to experience this exhibition in person. So we're going to hand it over to Carolyn and she's going to walk through.
Okay, great. Hi everyone, thanks for viewing this virtual walkthrough. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about the show, and I saw some of you here yesterday when I came with my family, and you already look like you know about the show, but I'll tell you some more about it.
The docents always want to know more.
Yes, okay. Well, let's go, we're going to go this way. Okay, so we're here in what I'm calling the first room and the welcome room. And so the title of the show is, as you know, Cali is Cali. And that phrase in Spanish, which is like in English, there's no place like home, or there's no place like Cali, is a popular expression in Cali, Colombia, where my family is from. And for me, I was thinking of, well, Cali, where my family is from, but also California, and a little nod to LL Cool J's going back to Cali. Is it going or coming back to Cali? Going back to Cali. And from the 80s, which is like my era when I was a teenager. But really the title Cali is about this connection with the old country of Cali, Colombia, and California, and this kind of transference, right, of knowledge, of the family traveling back and forth, right? So my parents immigrated in 1962. My dad came from Cali to Los Angeles, to California, and we lived here for about 10 years, not a little less than 10 years, and then they decided to pack up and go back to Cali, Colombia. And then they were there for a couple of years, and they decided, you know what, we don't like it here anymore. We've kind of gotten used to our new home of California, so let's go back. And so when I was about, I think, five, we came back to Los Angeles. So this first wall is really like the home wall, or casa, and there's pictures on the wall of different places that we've lived in Colombia and Cali, and also in Los Angeles. And so I think the first, there's a couple anchor photos. Can go to this one. Is a photograph of my grandmother, Laura, my dad's dad, with his brothers and their dog, Roy. And if you notice in the background, the tile work, the mosaic tile work, and the kind of it's really like an indoor fountain or a patio. A lot of the homes in Colombia have, well, in the yards, there'll be like a kind of a mosaic area with a shower or a sink for kind of more, washing or sloppy, kind of cleaning the mop or things like that. And so, but I was always intrigued by this tile pattern. It's here as well with my grandmother, Laura. This tile pattern, just thinking that it's so beautiful, and I wanted to recreate it and think about bringing it kind of to life. And of course I asked several members of the family what was the color of the tile, and because it's black and white it's hard to tell, and I'm like, maybe I can tell, is it, and one person said it was blue and white, and that seemed to make sense, like very traditional blue and white tile. Another person said it was brown with tan and maybe blue or pink. I was like, I don't know, maybe that could make sense too. But I decided to kind of have it change a little bit, and I made it red, yellow, and black in these pedestal tile pieces that I had made. I worked with a master tile artist named Raul Curiel to help me tile these pedestals. And the colors in the pedestals are red and yellow and black, and they're more like, I think of like more modernist or like Bauhaus colors, the red and the yellow, like primary colors. And so you'd see these colors, the red and the black, in the bubble chairs in the next room, which I'll talk about soon. So back over here, some of the photographs, there's different photographs of my parents in Los Angeles. This is my mom and my aunts for my brother's birthday in an apartment in Hollywood. This is my, if you could see it, my dad on Angel's Flight, the trolley in downtown LA that you would see off of Olive or Hill Street there. My maternal grandparents with my mom on the left and my Uncle James and my Aunt Maruja. Then in the center of this wall I've also included a large photograph which I took actually of the lake at MacArthur Park, and thinking of like that has been historically my family's hub, or at least my parents and our immediate family's hub in Los Angeles, and always kind of returning to this area and living in and around this area at different times. My father also had his business, his print shop business, a few blocks from here on 7th and Union, and his printing business, which was also a photo studio, was central to his kind of professional work, but also artistic practice. If I were to think of my dad was a kind of an artist who photographed and collected photographs throughout his lifetime, which is really the impetus or the inspiration for this show. He left over 4,000 photographs and film, Super 8 film, videos, a lot less number of those, but over 4,000 analog photographs that he started taking or sometimes just collecting from family and friends since like the late 1950s through 2011 when he passed away. And so from his shop in MacArthur Park, he took photographs or was hired as a family photographer for quinceañeras and birthday parties and weddings, or he took ID photographs. This photograph here is of our home in Glendale in the early 90s, and you see in the chair, I think this is from when my parents were trying to sell the house, so everything's very cleaned up, but the bubble chairs are there in the photographs, and so the chairs kind of move throughout our different living situations and kind of appeared in our house in Glendale there. Here are my parents and my brother, Adolfo, at MacArthur Park in the lake. And this was when you could go for a boat ride on the lake, and this was maybe something that we would do on the weekends, right, for family entertainment. We have this curtain piece is a curtain that's based on one of the drawings in the collage wall of the landscape. And so in my painting practice, I've been exploring the landscape, the environment, specifically of Colombia, looking at botanical illustrations from the 19th century and 20th century of the landscape of Colombia and the Americas, and thinking about how the environment is affected by war, by conflict, but also by migration. And so in the larger collage wall, we're going to see the photographs interacting with drawings of the landscape and thinking about the way the land and the landscape their relationship to migration and to immigration. And so in this piece, it's a kind of an ode to the home environment, the domestic environment. It's a digitally printed fabric based on an original watercolor and gouache drawing. Okay, so we're moving on to here. It's very hard to do a talk with this mask on. I'm like huffing and puffing. You can take it off. Okay. Okay, this is important here. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so I don't blow my germs on you. This is on the left is a ruana, which is a South American term for kind of like the poncho or serape. This was my grandmother's ruana, which has been passed on from to her daughter, then to my father, and then somehow it ended up in my hands, and I've had it for about 30 years. I don't know if it's wool or alpaca, but it's a very heavy kind of textile that is even like way too hot for Southern California weather. But what I love about the ruana is a kind of a national Colombian symbol that is kind of like a national symbol that's like worn in the countryside or in the Andes, right up at higher altitudes. It's also an indigenous kind of symbol. It's worn by several indigenous communities in Colombia today. But what I find interesting about it is that in this photograph on the collage wall, we see my aunt is descending from the airplane, and she has the ruana in her arms there as she's dressed like very 1960s, kind of that girl, with heels and her short skirt, but she has her ruana. And then I also thought that this photograph was really poignant, right, and that she's descending, and this is back when people could meet their loved ones in the tarmac. Behind her, I'm assuming it's Mexicana Airlines, but it says Mexican, which I think is kind of an interesting comment, so you guys can discuss. So this is the collage wall, which is a selection of the photographs from my dad's archive. There's many more, but I selected, mostly photographs from the 60s through the 70s and 80s, and there's some contemporary photographs in there. But with the photographs and some of the ephemera, like we have my cousin's high school graduation invitation from Glendora High School, postcards from like Cali, other airline tickets or luggage tags. I wanted to connect the drawings of the landscapes, and then in the drawings I figure or include these geometric shapes in gold leaf, and those are referencing the gold empire, gold cultures from Colombia, pre-conquest cultures of the Muisca and the Chibcha, whose kind of gold artifacts and symbology form part of Colombian identity, for better or for worse, and so we see like these kind of gold symbols in people's households and jewelry. In the Colombian peso, right, you'll find those symbols. So, but what I wanted to include them is in the way that, in maps that show the gold trade route, they'll show the trade route from the Incan Empire in Peru going all the way up to southern Mexico, and not just gold, but jade and other kind of minerals, right, that would travel up and down the two, from Mexico, right, southern Mexico to Central America and down to South America. It's another one with the spiral shapes, and those shapes are found in artifacts, gold artifacts, in petroglyph drawings in the side of mountains and in caves in Colombia. So there's my dad at Santa Monica there. In the collage wall, I started to incorporate the photographs, actually placing them on the landscape drawing and thinking about relationships in the photograph to the landscape. Like the one in the center here, you kind of see, is a photograph of the observatory, and we see the Hollywood Hills, right, behind them, and they're kind of linking that line in the hills to the line in the drawing, which is more representing like the Colombian landscape. This photograph here is probably even though it's a little bit embedded in the collage, it's the centerpiece in my mind of this collage wall, and thinking about, this is my dad in 1962. When he came this first year, was here alone without my mom and my brother, and he would, in the style of the era, much more elegant, and especially coming from Colombia and thinking he's going to be in this new country, dressing up for work or looking for work in a suit with a briefcase. And so a friend of the family took these photographs of him over the 101 Harbor Freeway. And so in them, I really see he's obviously kind of looking to the future, thinking about the future, posing for the future, but embedded in that kind of pose, there's the imaginary, the thinking about the past, or holding the landscape of the past. So in these, so we have airline tickets from Eastern Airlines, different kind of ID photographs of the planes, my grandmother, my cousins, then cards of his business cards from his business, his print shop near MacArthur Park, Kalima Graphics, and he also taught driving school for several years.
You want to talk about the birds a little bit?
Yeah, okay, here we go, the birds. Okay. So in the collage wall, I've also included drawings of migratory birds that travel from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere and pass through Colombia. This is the cerulean warbler in here. And this guy up here. This guy. This is the blackpoll warbler, Curuco de Blackpoll. And I put the Avianca airline, the suitcase tag on the warbler. And so kind of thinking about the migratory birds, right, and their relationship, or we can, imagine them like migrants traveling back and forth, and how this idea of travel, right, and migration is not just a kind of thing that birds and animals do naturally, but that humans do as well. This is an enlarged photograph of a postcard my dad sent to my mom, or was going to send, I'm not sure, but in it, it's when he was here that year by himself. He says that, for Luz and Adolfo Leon, with all my heart, I'm here in these lands. And this picture was taken in Long Beach on the 31st of March, 1963, in the hours of the afternoon, and it's very cold. And I hope to see you next year when you'll have your second birthday. Where should we go next? Oh, we could go over here maybe. So this wall here is called Personajes, or personalities. And it also has a table top vitrine. look a little bit at the personajes are enlarged photographs of passport or ID photographs that my dad collected or took himself. It's my father on the top left, at different stages, my mom on the bottom left, and then my mother's grandparents, her parents, my grandmother and grandfather, my Aunt Fabiola, who's the lady descending from the airplane in the collage wall, my uncle on the top right in the middle, and then my brother, who's older than me, but he's a baby in the top right, and then going down the bottom right is me as a baby, and then my brother as a teenager, preteen, and then kind of different stages, maybe 10 years old in the bottom, center bottom, and then to the right, he's a little older, maybe 14. And so with these, I just think that they're really interesting, the way, what they show about the person's personality coming through, their identity, maybe some of them. They're more like a serious photographs, I think, from a different era of being dressed up and acting serious for an official government document. But they also reveal maybe something about the personality, like innocence or bravado, maybe worry, in the case of my grandmother. And so here we have, this is the tabletop vitrine, and so these are different objects that have traveled back and forth with my family back, to Los Angeles, and sometimes back to Colombia, and then back to Los Angeles. And, I'm going to go here first. It's like I can't see because my eyes are... the name is Objects for Daily Use to maintain... what is the... Objects for daily life used to maintain the memory of where we came from and where we are going, and brought from one place and taken to another. So that's what they are.
Artists with their lengthy titles.
Yeah. So now you guys have to memorize that and repeat it backwards. So yes, just like the title says, they're objects that were brought back that traveled back and forth from one country to another. And thinking about, some of these are, again, kind of national objects from Colombia, like this is carriel, or side satchel, which is another kind of folk object from Colombia that is used by kind of cowboys or country folk to carry their money and their tobacco. But it's also a kind of almost maybe kitsch national symbol, but made out of, I don't know, is that really a cheetah? This belonged to my uncle Jair, who was my brother's brother. The other object here is the top is a cacerola, or saucepan, to fry eggs, and that belongs to my mother. I don't know if she knows that it's here, but it's also for me. I think most regular folk or Colombian would be like, why is that there? But for me, it has a lot of sentimental value in thinking like this was something that was very strange and was like not what my quote-unquote American friends had. It's a collection of my father's passports, and he kept every single passport from the late 50s until he passed away. And I think there's probably a few more U.S. passports, but these are the ones that I found. I thought it was like poignant that each one was like Colombia, 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 and the last one is the United States, like his final resting spot. These are doilies made by my grandmother. It's my father's glasses and one of his cameras. So he was an avid kind of amateur family photographer, but also hired himself out as a photographer for weddings and birthday parties and celebrations. So this is one of his cameras. In some of the photographs that he appears in, you'll see that he's holding one of these cameras. Okay. In here, these are what we call in my family the bubble chairs or burbujas, but that's actually not the correct name for them. That's just what we call them. But they are knockoffs of the Aero Arneo pill chair, and from the 1960s. And so these were, one of them was made in Colombia at my father's best friend's business that made fiberglass modernist furniture. They were knockoffs of.
Which one?
The Aero Arneo pill chair.
No, but which one of these was made in Colombia?
I think, no. It might be the black one.
Just curious.
Yeah, it might.
I like the docents for that.
Yeah, it might be the black one. But his friend had this business of modernist furniture knockoffs in Colombia. And then my dad sold them in Colombia at a store he had. At some point in the 80s, he brought the molds to Los Angeles and then reproduced 2 of them in our backyard in the garage. And so my dad was always the tinkerer, making and inventing things, photographing, weird things that he saw on the street, or making these bubble chairs in our backyard. So I'm not sure. It might be the black one, but these were part of our family, kind of in the living room, not mismatching with my mom's colonial furniture or 1980s furniture.
So one question I have, Carolyn, and it's interesting to me. This happens like with the Ruana and your aunt holding it as she's getting off the plane, and there's the photograph in the entryway of the bubble chairs in the apartment. And I think there's this really interesting relationship between memory and photography, and real life and what's real, and how we represent it and how we use something, or how we record that with the camera that's playing out in the exhibition. So I'm wondering, I know that's maybe also part of some of your use of these photographs here too. So maybe you can talk a little bit about memory and how that's kind of a thread that runs through the exhibition.
Yeah. Am I still recording? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So the photographs obviously are a way to hold memory, or to create a memory. And for us, I think the chairs definitely have an element of memory, when we have the real chairs and we have the photograph of the chairs, and I think, for them, been interested also in the kind of creative way that in Latin America, or immigrants will reinvent something. Like maybe you could get these chairs at the store and they're very expensive, but then for my dad, he's like, why? I'm just going to make them, right, myself, and this kind of creativity, right, of reinterpreting modernism that you would find in Latin America, which I wasn't really aware of, right, until I became an adult and went to art school and all of those things, and started really looking at the people's homes in my relatives in Colombia. Well, we could go here to the photographs. So this section here are, it's called Parece ahí, mija, or Stand There, Darling, or Honey. And they're photographs that my dad took of my mom at different locations around Los Angeles. And they're in part tourist photos of her at these different locations, Groman or Mann's Chinese Theater, now the Kodak Theater, at the Santa Monica Pier, at the Biltmore Hotel, the Rose Parade at maybe Lafayette Park in Los Angeles, at Marilyn Monroe's kind of tomb or mausoleum, I think that's her, and then my mom at another location, like a lake kind of place somewhere. And so when Cassandra's like asking about memory, I think of the way that these photographs, they are like holding a place for this memory, remembering that, you know, my parents were here, or that these when we talk about immigrants or migration, immigrants like being this new thing or this new phenomena, they've actually been here for a long time. And so I mean, although the 60s is not that long compared to how long other people have been here, I see these photographs as kind of being, I don't know, kind of proof, right, of showing this timeline of different folks in these spaces.
We've also talked about the landscape and these markers as kind of representing time and place in an interesting way. I don't know if there's more you want to say about that.
Yeah.
These sort of like iconic California.
Right. Well, a lot of these are iconic California or Southern California locations, like the Santa Monica Pier, or going to Hollywood, going to taking a photograph in front of Mann's Chinese Theater, going to the Rose Parade, going to famous celebrities grave sites, right? And so, I mean, I think for me, the one that kind of breaks the tourism aspect of the photographs is this one up top where my mom, the one on the left and the right, she's at the Rose Parade, but then the one to the right, she's being, there's a policeman and he has his hand on her shoulder, kind of ushering her to get a move on, and I think it's like an interesting interruption into the kind of tourism, like happy tourism. Like then there's this kind of break with that, and we're not sure, is he just a crowd control situation? He's just telling her to please move on, or is it something a little bit more menacing or dangerous or to her? And so I think that's interesting in her expression, like she's not happy at all with being photographed or maybe being, touched by this policeman.
Where's that one again?
I don't really know where this one is. Is it like Marineland or?
Could be. I was going to say maybe Disneyland or something.
Oh, but I don't recognize that. Yeah, like the boat from Disneyland, but that's not. Yeah, and it's.
Maybe the distance might know.
Yeah, I mean, I think in there's a whole nother section, more photographs that are not in this show, but where my family is at all of these different Southern California, just entertainment places like Disneyland and Knott's Berry Farm, and there's actually, envelope after envelope of every year a different trip to Knott's Berry Farm, which is just interesting in that, like, these places are also belong to like these communities and are part of the memory and the affection that they have for these places, like being at the Santa Monica Pier. That's Cassandra. Yeah. Yeah. So these two are called Tropical Geometries, Ruana Interruption. And in these are earlier pieces, but they kind of connect the work in the photographs and the drawings with the photographs to my painting practice. With these, I mean, for several years now, I've been looking at drawings, illustrations, botanical illustrations of the landscape in the Americas, and particularly in Colombia, and kind of looking at the landscape, but also looking at patterns from indigenous textiles, from artifacts, from like Andean geometry or Amazonian alchemies, and thinking of ways that these shapes can interact or interfere with the traditional European kind of mode of landscape. If we think of the European landscape mode as being this very horizontal depiction of the landscape with those giant, the big romantic era paintings like the Frederick Edwin Church or other artists from that era who were really depicting the landscapes, particularly in the Americas, as almost like a companion visual piece to manifest destiny. Like, these are the lands that we're going to come and that are beckoning you. So I think of the patterns that I'm doing as a kind of interference or breaking up of the spaces, and they almost create a kind of a speculative or futuristic mode in that they create almost like vortices into the landscape, or another way of viewing the landscape. There's one. So in them, I study, I've been looking a lot at botanical illustrations, at photographs of flora and fauna from Colombia, and this can be in focus there, but also kind of going off on my own fantastical take on them. So some of, part of the drawing is an attempt at realism, another part is more my own kind of fancy with it. This one is called Los Farallones, and Los Farallones are a mountain range that are next to or part of Cali, where my family's from. And this is an earlier piece, maybe like 2 or 3 years old, but in them I was, in this piece and this time I was already thinking about kind of my family's hometown and the landscape of Cali, and thinking about these kind of modernist shapes to interfering or interjecting themselves into the landscape. I've been working with this circular shape or sun shape in more recent times, and again, a kind of nod to the traditional cultures from Colombia, but also this kind of, for me, I was remembering also the shape of the bubble chairs in them, and kind of incorporating this circular shape into the landscape. Okay, this film piece is called Intercambio. There's my dad with his camera. And it is a cultural, virtual, or filmic digital interchange or exchange with my dad's Super 8 film that's on the left, which he filmed of the family. It's a compilation of a few different events, but it's mostly what we see is our family traveling from Los Angeles to driving right from Los Angeles to Florida, where then we would fly from Florida to Colombia. It's a way to save money, I guess. And then an American family named the Barstow family traveling in Colombia. And so I found these films by the Barstow family of their trip to Colombia. And so what I think is interesting is where they're traveling through the landscape and the mountainsides in Colombia, then we're traveling. This is us on the road. My phone just died.
Well, you did a great